in yourself? CFA Society Nigeria is at your disposal, promoting the highest standards of investment practice in Nigeria. As an affiliate of CFA Institute, CFA Society Nigeria seeks to promote the highest standards of investment practice in Nigeria and to provide a vibrant community in which its members and other key players in the investment industry can interact and grow. When you have the CFA charter, you're globally recognized. Take advantage today by writing the CFA exam and joining us at CFA Society Nigeria. For more information, visit us at cfasocietynG.org. CFA Society Nigeria, making finance a force for good.
Money Talks.
Money Talks.
Money Talks. Money Talks.
Money Talks with CFA Society Nigeria. Let's talk about money.
We are professionals. We are impact driven. We are CFA Society Nigeria, a member society of the CFA Institute Global Network of Societies. Our mission is to promote the highest standard of practice in the Nigerian financial services industry and provide a vibrant community for our members. The CFA Charter signals the holders' commitment to professional excellence. As thought leaders, we collaborate with stakeholders to ensure adherence to ethical standards, better education for professionals, and to build market integrity. We are the leading voice for advocacy in the finance and investment industry in Nigeria. To partner with us or become our member, visit us at cfasocietynG.org for more details. CFA Society Nigeria, making finance a force for good.
Money Talks.
Money Talks.
Money Talks. Money Talks.
Money Talks with CFA Society Nigeria. Let's talk about money. Thank you so very much indeed for joining us on the program this evening. Money Talks on 92.3 Inspiration FM is brought to you by CFA Society Nigeria. And thank you for your time. We're here every Monday from 4:30 till 5 p.m. So be sure to join us at that time. My guest on the program this evening is Abiodun Adebimpe. Abiodun Adebimpe, we're going to refer to him as Abiodun on this program, is the West African Regional Head of Custody Services for Rand Merchant Bank RMB, a division of First Rand Group headquartered in South Africa, and the incumbent president of the Association of Asset Custodians of Nigeria, AACN. As a committed West African capital market advocate, Abiodun has been a standing member of the Nigerian Securities Exchange Commission SEC's Apex Market Advocacy Group, the Capital Markets Committee CMC, for over a decade, and has been involved in the successful implementation of a number of securities market development initiatives in Nigeria. Abiodun holds a Master of Business Administration degree, MBA, from the University of Suffolk in the United Kingdom, and a Bachelor of Science degree, BSc, in Accounting from the University of Ilorin, Nigeria, where he emerged as the best graduating student in the Accounting and Finance Department and Faculty of Business and Social Sciences for the 2002-2003 academic session. He also emerged as the overall best professional examination student of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, ICAN, in 2014, before qualifying as a chartered accountant in 2005. He's a fellow of ICAN, a full member of the CISI UK, and an honorary senior member of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, CIBN. Ladies and gentlemen, let's make welcome the man we're going to call Abiodun, right here in the studio, Abiodun Adebimpe, to the studio. I was almost tempted to say good morning. Not morning, but good morning. I think that's how we should be greeting people on this program. Good morning, because this is Money Talks.
Yes, I agree.
Good to have you, Abiodun.
Same here.
As I was reading out your CV, I was saying this is Efiko seated right there. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We appreciate you.
My pleasure.
You can also be part of the program this evening, wherever you are. You can join us on the telephone 0700 923 923 923. That's 0700 923 923 923. Or you can send us a message on WhatsApp 0817 313 6193. If you're on Instagram, you can join me live at Captain Smart 007. That's my Instagram handle at Captain Smart 007. And our point of discussion this evening is asset custodians and consumers of financial services in Nigeria. That's what we're talking about this evening. Asset custodians and consumers of financial services in Nigeria is our subject of discussion. People are already calling the program, so you have to wait till we start to discuss with Abiodun here on the program this evening. So, Abiodun, let's get straight into it. This evening, custodians and consumers of financial services in Nigeria is big, actually. So you need to break it down for us, because we were not all best graduating students from our set. So let's just start the session by getting the fundamental issues resolved. Can you just tell us, Abiodun, who is a custodian, and as we say in local parlance, what's in be their work?
Thanks, Captain Smart. So I think to start with, like you said, the word custodian is an English word. Everybody knows. It simply means someone who helps other people, to safekeep valuables, right? But within the context of the financial market, the guys we refer to as custodians are financial institutions who have set up capacity to safekeep people's financial assets. Financial assets here will be your portfolio investments, largely speaking, equities, which are popularly called shares or stocks here in Nigeria, fixed income, securities, treasury bills, bonds, supernatural bonds, and all of that. So a custodian basically is an entity who oversees and ensures the safety, and that's the emphasis, safety of people's investments. When you look at the ecosystem of portfolio investment, and by portfolio investment I like to tell people that there are two types of investment you can do largely. You can do direct investment, which is when you set up a company, or you can do portfolio investment, which means someone set up a company, but he needs you to fund him, to grow the company. Then he gives you a stake in the company, either in form of equity or some debt, instrument is sold to you. Now, custodians in this case focus more on financial assets, and they focus on portfolio of securities. Within the ecosystem, you can have a broker who helps you to do the buying and selling, but a broker does buying and selling. That's what the broker is set up to do. What happens after the broker has bought for you? I think back in the days when securities were largely in certificate paper, so you could buy shares, you collect your certificate, you take it home, you keep it under your pillow, or in your fireproof cabinet, you're safe, you didn't need a custodian. But now, market has gone electronic, right, where you have investments and there's nothing you're holding other than some records, So who keeps those things for you? And that's where custodians come in largely.
Oh, wow. So with what you have now explained, why would anyone, I'm sure somebody driving right now or sitting back at home at the office will now say, Abiodun, why would anyone need the services of a custodian? And just like you talked about safe custody of physical assets, apart from that function, can an individual actually use them for any other thing?
Okay, so Captain Smart, let me backtrack a little bit. First of all, you have assets in physical form, you have assets in electronic form. Physical asset could be your valuables, gold, certificates, and all of that. That is not the focus of the kind of custodians we talk about here. The custodians I'm talking about today are financial institutions, mostly banks, who help investors to achieve that safekeeping. First of all, there are cases where there are some physical valuables that you need a custodian to keep, but right now I think most valuables are mostly in electronic form. So let's go back to why would somebody need a custodian? People do forget that within the investment ecosystem, portfolio investment ecosystem, there are some key players that you require. So you need a broker who does the buying and selling for you. Number two, most times you need a fund manager or an investment manager. We even have investment managers that do what we call collective investment schemes, where they pull funds together, literally to amount of money from different people, because there's some investment that for you to do it, you need to have some large sums of money. Now, if you don't have that, you have investment vehicles that we call CISs, collective investment schemes or mutual funds, where they gather pool of little funds. It becomes big, so that the fund manager can get better negotiation power with banks or wherever they want to place the money. So those are investment managers. They make investment decisions for you. Now the investment manager decides what to put the fund into. The broker does the buying and the selling. Then the question is, after it's been bought, what happens? And many Nigerians don't know that after you have bought, there's something we call settlement. Settlement means we've struck a deal, myself and yourself, I'll sell this to you, I'll buy this. That's a trade has happened. But settlement is when the actual exchange takes place. So today you go online, you buy something and you pay. Let's say you pay online. You have parted with cash because you have paid. But you have to wait for delivery of what you bought. That means settlement is not complete. Settlement is completed when the exchange of goods and cash has happened on both sides. The moment the broker is done, of course, the broker needs to look for the next trade to do. Who we want to sell next. Someone needs to ensure that settlement happens. That's number one. Then number two, after settlement has happened, that fellow keeps those securities, investment, and he ensures what we call asset servicing. That is, everything that happens within the life cycle of that investment, from when you buy, whether you're buying to hold or you want to sell the following day, till when you eventually sell. A lot of things happen in the life of a security. If it's an equity, for example, a dividend could be declared. There could be a general meeting. There could be some merger and acquisition where you are required to vote, and join the board in making a decision. Most times, Nigerian investors, because of the low awareness of what custodians do, they just buy and keep. What people know is you buy, you sell, that's all. They don't know that when you buy, many things happen, and if you have an agent called a custodian who will help you to service the asset in terms of, is there any corporate action? What we call corporate action is whatever the company you have invested in is doing. If it's a debt, for example, a bond, for instance, the issuer of the bond, say a federal government of Nigerian bond, for example, they want to pay a coupon on that bond. Someone needs to ensure that your coupon is collected when it is due. Today, and I know that the Securities and Exchange Commission is doing a lot of advocacy on how do you reduce unclaimed dividend in Nigeria. And you ask yourself, when an investor invests, he wants to get dividend. So how come do we have so humongous amount of unclaimed dividend? That happened because most of the investors did not know that there's something called asset servicing. You can have an agent who proactively collect your dividend for you, ensure that your dividend is credited to your account, so you don't need to bother yourself. And that's why you will hardly find anyone who uses a custodian, to have their money in unclaimed dividend, because that's part of what the custodian will do for you. And a lot of everything that happens within that circle, I think, apart from safekeeping, asset servicing, and also ensuring that you have the right reporting. For instance, there are many parties that are involved in your in managing your portfolio. For example, equity, you have a registrar, who keeps the record. You have a depository, a couple of depositories we have in the market now, who ensures that there's a total record of all the instruments in that space. A custodian would work with all these people proactively. And I think the other thing custodians also do to ensure that there's safety of your investment is that custodians set up, what we call an SPV, a special purpose vehicle, mostly nominees, which is an entity that is different from the custodian bank's entity. And that's for further protection. We call it bankruptcy remoteness, to say even if the custodian institution or the custodian bank goes under, you will not find assets that are held in custody on behalf of client in the balance sheet of such a bank. Instead, you're going to have it in a special purpose vehicle whose duty is just to hold, and you achieve separation of legal entities. So legal title is separated, such that if the custodian institution has a problem and you have receivers or liquidators, liquidating the assets, those assets under custody are secure because they are in a different vehicle. Wow. So, custodians in a lot of developed markets, they are part of is standard. As you're appointing a broker, once you decide you want to invest, in fact, the first person you probably will appoint is a custodian. Because that's the person you give your money. Then you appoint a broker who will liaise with the custodian to do the buying and selling. You appoint an investment manager who make decision of what to buy, what to sell. But the custodian keeps both your cash and your securities.
Absolutely. So somebody will also ask you, Abiodun, these custodians you're talking about, how do they fit into the financial services in Nigeria? Because over time on this program, we have seen how different stakeholders in the financial services sector fit into the financial services here in Nigeria, whether they be banks, or brokers, as you've mentioned, trustees, insurers, regulators, and all of that. So these custodians, where's their place in the financial services sector in Nigeria?
Captain Smith, I must say I think this could probably be my favorite question among the questions that you're asking me today. Number one, because people don't even know who custodians are, and number two, that function seemed to have been subsumed under some other functions. So I'll say today, if you appoint a broker or a trader to buy something for you, you give him your cash, he buys for you, he probably keeps it until when you need to sell it, you go back to me. In that case, you have made him both your broker and your custodian, right? So where custodian sits, so custodian, we actually call custody function a post-trading, function in the market, which means everything that happens immediately after a transaction has been executed. Everything that happens, from clearing, from settlement, from safekeeping, from corporate action, all the things we call from, proxy voting when there's a general meeting, regulatory reporting. So when you look at the players in the financial services, banks, and let me say this, most custodians are banks.
Okay.
In fact, by definition, banking is all about keeping custody of people's safekeep in those valuables. That's why those days, people take gold to bank, you keep it. We call that word, I think now they call it a safe locker. That's what it's called now. But when you talk about where custodians, so not all banks are custodians, but almost all custodians are banks.
Wow.
Because they take deposits, like I just explained. You want to buy security, you want to invest, you need to put your cash, with the custodian. So most custodians are banks to start with, but not all custodians
are banks.
Not all banks are custodians, but not all banks are custodians, but all custodians or most custodians, are banks, right? So you give them your money, they keep your money for you until you decide what to buy. And that's what we also say. Custodians don't make investment decisions for you. They don't tell you what to invest in. You talk to your investment advisor to say, invest in this. But what custodian does is they ensure that there's no unauthorized trading or usage of your funds, right? So I think I've explained post-trading. That's where you find custody. Custodian will also interact with, your broker, the registrar, the regulator, of course, because in fact, if I go to the collective investment scheme space, what we call the fund management industry, I think one of the beautiful things that the Securities and Exchange Commission of Nigeria did, to increase investors' confidence in that space, is to actually enforce the use of custodians by fund managers, where you say a fund manager duty is to make investment decision, to appoint a broker, but there must be a custodian who keeps. So on a regular basis, you see the custodian sending an independent report of what they are holding on behalf of the members of the public to the regulator, and the fund manager does the same thing. And then you see they do this reconciliation, this to ensure that there's nothing missing, there's no
magu.
No, there's no unauthorized activities on that. Let me close answering this question with the beauty of when you look at the trustee, because I get this question almost every time when you say, what's the difference between the trustee and the custodian? And I just want to explain. A trustee, is a representative of the investors. Is somebody that sits like the investor. And the function of a trustee becomes very important, especially when you have large pool of investors. That is practically not possible, to bring all of them. At times you have some thousands of people that have invested in one fund. you can't gather all of them into a room before you make investment decisions. So regulation requires that you have a trustee who represents, and in fact, the regulator sees the trustee as the legal owner of those securities. So you have the trustee. But where the function of the custodian, if I pick all the players in the securities industry, the closest to custodian is the trustee. But the difference is the trustee represents the owners, but the custodian keep those investments, whether it's cash, whether security. And so since the SEC enforced this in the mutual fund space, you'll see that hardly can you set up a fund without appointing, you have a trustee, you have a custodian, and some other parties that you have to appoint.
Brilliant. All banks are custodians, but not all custodians are banks. So take that one today.
All custodians are banks,
but not all banks.
Or not all banks are custodians. Because you need a separate license. So apart from your banking license.
All custodians are banks.
Yes.
But not all banks
are
custodians.
Yes.
So take that one today. You can call us on the telephone 0700. I must confess that this is a masterclass, right? 0700 923 923 923. The number to call here, or you can send us a very short message to 0817 313 6193. You can also record a voice note if you will. Make it short as well, maybe just 30 or 45 seconds, and send it to us here on 0817 313 6193. My guest this evening is Abiodun Adebimpe, and we're discussing here today asset custodians and consumers of financial services in Nigeria. That's what we're talking about here. So if you have questions, maybe you're looking for a custodian, or you're looking for how to keep your assets safe for your investment, we have Abiodun in the studio here. You can ask the questions or seek some clarifications. Perhaps you're having difficulties in resolving any problem you have around this area. You're also free to call. Hello, good evening to you. Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for calling. Tell us your name and where you're calling from.
My name is Clement.
Okay, Clement, go ahead quickly.
From Victoria Island. Can you put more light on the all custodians are banks? All banks are not custodians. That's number one question. The second question: special administrators, are they custodians? Thank you. I just want to ask question.
Thank you, Clement. We're taking note of that. 0700 923 923 923. It's as though we're preparing for an exam. Or you can send a message to 0817 313 6193. So, Abiodun, he asked two questions. Maybe we should just start from there.
Sure. So his first question is we should elaborate on what we mean by all custodians are banks, but not all banks are custodians. So let me start by saying the capacity, what it takes to be a custodian of financial assets is more than the regular banking. So after you have obtained your banking license and you do what every other bank does, if you decide that you want to be a custodian of security, then you need to set up, a separate, like a separate division or business, where you acquire the right systems, you acquire you engage your right staff. So you need to set up that capacity. And number two, then you need to reach out to the I think one interesting thing about custody is that you have two types of regulators. Of course, because you're a bank, you need to be regulated by the central bank. You must have a banking license. Whatever category of bank you belong to, you must be licensed. Then number two, you need to go to the Securities and Exchange Commission and get another license. That is called for the function of a custodian. And before the SEC will give you that license, they come to your office, they ensure that you have the system, you have all the safety measures, everything required, that gives them comfort, because they have the overall, responsibility to protect the market and to boost investors' confidence. So so that's why I said not all banks are custodians. It doesn't mean that you don't keep your things with all banks. You keep your things, but when it comes to securities, financial assets, any bank that want to play in that space will need to get another level of licensing from the Securities and Exchange Commission for them to be able to do. They need to have the right people. We call them sponsored individuals who will go through some rigorous, training, examination, interview until they are found, certified by the SEC before you're given a license. So in that regard, you have some other financial institutions that are custodians, but they must have some association or some affiliation, with banks. So, and that's why we say to that one. The second question is on pension administrator. I think if I remember correctly. Brilliant question, I must say.
Okay, before you answer that one, maybe we just throw this one in because of time. Hello, good evening to you. Hello. Thank you for calling. Tell us your name and where you're calling from. Okay, quickly.
Yeah, sir, I put a share when I was on board with UBA Bank. I bought share for myself, I bought for my children. Up till now, I'm not doing anything. Now I get a quick review when I get there, the time was to have a stockbroker. And when I went to the BI, I would hope that they prepared me to collect all the whole papers and this thing. Up to today, my hope is right. I decided not to go to them again, but I said what I would just go there to send all those certificates I gave to them. So this thing, as I said, as UBI has teach us, but it's not tell us how to operate this thing. I think that when I come, I will go back to them and say, not where I want the this. And whatever be the GBS, they will bring it there for me.
Okay, Dr. Goodman, thank you very much. He's gotten the meat of the question because we just have 2 minutes left on the program.
Okay, so the question on whether pension administrators are custodians, let me quickly explain that the shortest way I can. When you look at the pension industry in Nigeria, you have what we call the PFAs, that's the pension fund administrators, and you have what we call the PFCs. Those are the pension fund custodians. So the pension fund custodians, they are custodians and they do exactly everything a custodian bank does. The only difference is they are primarily focused on keeping pension assets which are invested in by pension fund administrators safe, right? That's their focus primarily, because I know they can also keep some other, but they are PFCs, pension fund custodians. They have PFAs, pension fund administrators, as their clients. So a PFA who is managing, a pension fund must appoint a pension fund custodian who keeps, both the cash and the. That's why when you look at today, when employers want to remit your pension deduction, they send it to an account that belongs to the pension fund custodian. Though the PFA is the administrator, is the manager. You decide what to invest in. But so you have that segregation, and that brings some level of comfort. To the question on investment UBA shares, and all I can say is because investors mostly in Nigeria will go directly to invest, whether go to the issuer to invest. You also have to do the legwork of getting your dividend, getting your shares, and all of that. But people that invest through custodians, that is, they give the money to the custodian does all of that for you.
He takes the worries.
It takes the worry away from you. Then you can focus on your profession while your investment is looked after by a professional.
Wow. Because of time, we have to call it a wrap here. I wish we had time to continue. But you can follow CFA Society Nigeria on social media at CFA Society NG on Twitter, that's X now, on Instagram, and also on LinkedIn. Or you can go to their Facebook page on the same address, CFA Society Nigeria, or just go to the website www.cfasocietynG.org. Again, www.cfasocietynG.org. So you can get more information. You can send an email there or just leave out a query, and someone will be there to respond to you. We must say many, many thanks to our very special guest. I said this is a masterclass. Really, Abiodun Adebimpe, who has been our guest on the program this evening. We've been talking about asset custodians and consumers of financial services in Nigeria. Abiodun, thank you very much. You have to come for the masters of this masterclass.
Thanks so much, Captain
Thank you
Smart.
so much.
It's my pleasure. It's been a good time here.
Yeah, it's been an education, really. Thank you so much for coming. We're back next Monday at 4:30 p.m. Be sure to join us at that time. Remember, you can follow me at Captain Smart 007. The video of this session is going to be posted there in just 2 minutes so you can catch up in case you missed anything. Thank you so much for coming. That's our time. Stay tuned. Alpha Club with the man is up next.